Hello, I'm Sudarshana Starshine Star. How are all of you guys doing? It's a beautiful Monday evening. It's November 10th, 2025. Um, I like to start all of my clips with the three opening prayers, which are in Sanskrit and Telugu, and they are short. And I am laughing because my last clip, when I said that, then I completely forgot to do them. But first, before I do that, let me um, say welcome to all of you. It's good to be here with you. And I'm going to, I command on the sacred holy blood of Jesus the Christ to flow over all of us and all of our beloveds in this moment and all of our social medias and any way that we communicate and express ourselves for the best and the highest. Jesus the Christ, Yeshua, please cast out the spirit of pain. Please cast out the spirit of fear. Please cast out the spirit of lack. Please cast out the spirit of self-dislike, self-hatred. Jesus the Christ, please cast out the spirit of bitterness, revenge. Jesus the Christ, please cast out all negativity. Please cast out all satanics, all satanic attachments, all demonics, all demonic attachments. Please cast out all ill health. And please cast out all scarcity thinking or poverty consciousness. Thank you so much, Yeshua. Please send your healing presence now. Please heal the wounds in our souls, Jesus. Please know that we receive your healings and your blessings, Jesus the Christ, Yeshua. Thank you so much. Amen. Swaha. And I call on the sacred holy presence of Mother Mary to bless all of us and all of our beloveds and all of our social medias and communication devices or means of communication and expression for the best and highest. Thank you so much for your beautiful heart, your beautiful love, your beautiful guidance and protection, and your magicalness. Thank you, Mother Mary. Thank you, Yeshua. Amen. Swaha. Now to the prayers. Om. 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 Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Parabrahmam, Tasmahi Sri Guruvena Namaha. Om Shuklam Bharataram Vishnum, Sashivarnam Chatubhujam, Prasanavaranam Dhyaye Sarva Vignopashantaye. Om Bhur Bhuva Suvaha Tat Savitur Varinyam Bhako Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonaha Prachodayat. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Wonderful. Well, I think I'm going to call this podcast. Oh, before I say that, I have a YouTube channel called It's the Dazzling of the Light. If you're not listening to this on my YouTube channel, that's what it's called. Or you can just go to YouTube and type in at Sudarshana Starshine Star. I think I have like 280 something very interesting and varied and spicy podcasts there, and a couple of videos, which you can see in my playlist section. Let me see what I wanted to say. Yes, I have so much to express and share with you guys. When I do this podcast, I'm going to do the part 2 of it, which is information behind a paywall, but I'm sharing it with all of you because I really feel to do that. And then I want to put out a podcast immediately after the part 2 of this about some really interesting, very interesting stuff about what really went on during the United States government shutdown. Yeah, the deepest meaning of it. I think many people will really be so inspired and happy to hear what I'm going to share with that. And then I have so much to do, but I really then after that want to share a podcast that now I can't believe it's been several weeks since I broke Grok. And I talked about it a few podcasts ago. I think it was October 23rd. It was a Thursday. I think that was the date. I have to check. But I had never used AI before, and I had a very interesting an intense experience with grok, and I broke grok. I wasn't trying to, but that's what happened. And then an incredible, cosmic, amazing message came through that I want to share with all of you, still through the vehicle of grok. But you've got to hear, and I'm going to share it with you. And it's so unusual, but very cool. I'm going to call this podcast, let's see, the workaround title I have of it is something like a New York City, Los Angeles crisis nightmare, bond fraud reveal, crashes New York City and Los Angeles. So, yes, this is a very serious topic. It needs to be known. It doesn't mean that there's not recovery. So I don't like to share things just to make people go, what? But people have to know this, because this is also, it's going to be affecting the world. It's not just in the United States. When New York City and Los Angeles really crashed because of this hidden bond fraud that has gone on for many years, and not just there. But you've got to hear about this. It's vital news. So this was actually coming from election night, November 4th, 2025, between David Nino Rodriguez, who has a channel. He calls himself Nino. I always want to call him Nino, but he's Mexican himself, but he calls it Nino, not Nino. So I follow his wishes. Nino. He's a very well-known, he was a heavyweight boxer, and now he's a content creator, and he has 107 on this podcast. Okay, so here we go. Get ready, because this is some real information, guys. Let's see. So Nino is waiting for Juan to come on, and he talks about this while he's waiting for Juan to join. He says, this is getting down to the wire, and Trump has said no more money for New York if Mamdani wins. He's not going to give it to a communist. I'm with Juan 07 right now. Then Juan comes on and he says, Juanito, good to have you back. And Juan says, hey, bro. Nino, so here we are in this mess. And then he gives like a Noble Gold commercial, and which I don't want to repeat for you guys. I'm sure many of you know what Noble Gold is. You can look that up. But Nino does this commercial for that. And then Juan says, hold on. I just want to add one thing with your commercial. It's not that gold is going higher necessarily. The dollar's devalued. Dollar is going lower. And so it's that you have a weakening dollar, and there's all sorts of threats out there. So, you want to protect yourself by not getting caught. Music stops with the wrong kind of an asset. It's kind of one of those things where when you get in a hyperinflation situation, inflation where the value of the currency is going down, you have to, a lot of people would get paid and have to spend the money in the next few minutes, because by the end of the evening in Brazil, when the currency collapsed, you'd buy anything you could find that had some kind of tangible value. And certainly that's what the bad guys had planned for us. There's right now, I've got an inventory that we've counted where we've had eyes on, know they exist, of 17,000 pallets of $100 bills. $100 million to a pallet. There's another 5,000 that I believe absolutely exists within the groups that I've tracked. And then one of the people who's key advisor in this administration, their inventory, with everything that they've looked at, is even greater. They say there's 100 trillion of pallets of cash, 100 million to a pallet, that have been printed by those criminal monsters working through the Federal Reserve System. And remember, even just the paper to print $100 trillion. Okay, that's hard to even begin to fathom these numbers. And then Nino says, well, they're trying to do to the United States what they did to Russia. Juan, well, yes, we didn't. What's interesting there is that it wasn't counterfeits. It wasn't somebody coming in from, left field to print the rubles. When we took down the ruble, they printed the rubles. We bought them. Then we flooded their market with the rubles at a later time. We bought them with hard Western currency, and they were glad to take it. And then we cut off the flow of Western currencies and sent their rubles back into their markets at the street level, and it collapsed the ruble. And it's you're not going to you're not able to collapse a currency from within a country's banking system, because the banking leadership, the political leadership, will cut off the flow of digital accounts to protect themselves. But when it's at the street level, you can't, person to person, you can't choke that off readily. If you're infusing lots of new cash into their system, it's going to reduce the confidence in the existing bills. Nino, let's switch gears real quick and let's talk about this New York mayoral election live updates. Zohan Mamdani leads Andrew Cuomo, Curtis Sliwa, as voters said to polls. Trump put out, I think, in a Truth Social post saying that a vote for Sliwa is a vote for Mamdani. He's actually pushing for Andrew Cuomo to win, which is, I wouldn't want it. The only one I would want to win is Curtis Sliwa. So, that's who I would, my instincts say, hey, that's the best mayor for New York. But Trump said no, that he'd rather, and then Juan cuts him off here. But listener, before I go to what Juan said to that response, I want to emphasize that if you know about what happened during the, the thing where we had the lockdown several years ago, you know what I'm talking about. When we were locked down because of the that I'm not going to say, but you know what I mean. You can go back and look at that. And Andrew Cuomo put elderly people, pulled them out of nursing homes in different boroughs in New York City, and had them placed in freezer trucks. Yes, freezer trucks. The kind with all the shelves that you put like all the items on. They were placed in there and the doors were shut. And these were people that were alive and breathing. So I'm talking in a calm voice because I've already had many tears over the crimes against humanity by these evils and their minions. But if you can imagine elderly people that are weak and defenseless, they can't defend themselves, they don't have their family members around, they're just had their blankets ripped off, taken out of the homes they were in, nursing homes or hospitals, and taken, like I said, and put in those things with the door shut. No one knows what's going on. You don't know if it's like a scary trick or whatever. That freezing air hits you. You have nothing on but your hospital gown or pajamas. It's just crimes against humanity. And Andrew Cuomo did that. So if you think he's walking around, you have another thought coming. When he was picked up by the White Hats for crimes against humanity and treason several years ago, and he was made to give an announcement on national television, which if you can remember, you might be thinking, why is Andrew Cuomo wearing a short-sleeved, like a Lacoste white shirt on this serious national news conference? And you can see very clearly quarter size, the size of a U.S. coin called a quarter-sized metal nipple rings in each nipple. Why is he wearing that and showing that on national television? Well, he was made to do that because, yeah, he did wear those, but obviously he didn't show those off in his twisted, perverted private life, including many things that I'm not going to mention right now, but all you have to know is crimes against humanity and treason, and those are capital offenses. So that's not the actual, as is called the original, the 1.0 Andrew Cuomo. It is a face mask. It is a 2.0. It is a white hat actor doing that. So to have this Andrew Cuomo voted in as mayor of New York would be to have a white hat who would be on the side of we the people, and who would be on the side of the constitutional republic, and who would be on the side of scouring and cleansing New York City of the foulness, evilness, evils, and evil minions and all their residues of their dastardly deeds. That's who that would be. No one in their right mind would say, oh yeah, we really like Andrew Cuomo. That's not who that is. So I just had to make clear about that. Now I'm going to go back to this reading. So after Nino said that, Juan interrupted him and said, "You've got to understand the context. Curtis wasn't going to be able to win at this point in time based on the numbers. So what Trump said, he would rather have a leftist American citizen who's truly an American than this communist, Marxist, whatever person that and then Nino interrupts and says, I can't believe New York is going this way. I mean, I don't think people are, in my mind, this is rigged. I don't think there's any possible way New Yorkers will come out and vote for this guy, not in anybody's sane mind. And one says, well, a lot of us thought the same way, but then again, PR. You can polish a TURD with good PR. And so and then Nino interrupts, he's only 34 years old. Zohan Mamdani, he's 34. Juan, yeah? Nino, I mean, that's a child to me, a kid. And then he's reading, proud DSA member Zohran Mamdani, 34, is maintaining his lead in New York as New Yorkers head to the polls Tuesday to elect the next mayor of New York City, with former New York governor and independent candidate Andrew Cuomo agonizingly close behind, and beret-wearing GOP nominee Curtis Sliwa as a distant third. And Juan says, yep. And Nino says, so by 9 p.m. I guess we'll know who's going to be the next mayor, but what do you think? Is Trump going about it the right way by saying, hey, we're not giving him any money? What's going to happen to New York? Juan, well, there's actually another interesting angle. There's real challenges, he's a naturalized citizen, of course, born in Uganda, and so with really good PR, he's, in a winning position. But is he technically at some level, he helped or promoted people that are categorized as terrorists. So is there an angle here where he may have violated his oaths as a naturalized citizen, and that citizenship can be revoked? And so a number of players have said that they will pursue legal, options. And then Nino said, shouldn't it be illegal for any kind of socialist or communist to even run for office? I mean, there should be laws against this man. And one said, well, you know what? Actually, let me tell you something that is, Lloyd Brunson, he has written a book on the U.S. Constitution and some commentary, and just came out. Lloyd actually makes the case that no one in public office can be there constitutionally who, pushes communist ideals and ideas. Excuse me. So you might want to have Lloyd Brunson on and let him explain how he sees that in the Constitution. I think it's a really important thing. I'll even hook you up later on today. I think it's an interesting perspective that he has. Nino. Yeah, I'll put that on ninoscorner.tv. And Nino's continuing. But it says here, 2011 study, Sharia and Violence in American Mosques, published in the Middle East Quarterly, surveyed 100 United States mosques selected proportionately by state Muslim population between 2007 and 2010, and found that 81% contained texts advocating or justifying violence in the name of Sharia or jihad. 51% calling for overthrowing non-Islamic governments, with 84.5% of imams recommending these materials during service. So there's been mosques popping up everywhere else as well, but mosques pumping up all over El Paso. That's just one down the street for me. There's one in Ciudad Juarez. I mean, what is it doing in Juarez? And it's overlooking all of El Paso. It's really kind of creepy. But I mean, this stuff is definitely by design. One, well, one of the things that will be pretty hard for folks down the road is how consistently we were betrayed by people in public office. And all of the truths of what's been going on for the last 20, 25, 30 years come to the fore. I think people are going to be repulsed from the good old boy politics and get along, go along stuff that has created a framework in which people could come in from outside the country, become citizens one way or the other, and not have had time to decide that they want to be American. American ideals, American perspectives, that they can meld into the American population as opposed to steered off into bizarre directions, fundamentally changing the way that America thinks and works and acts, taking us on a different course. And I think that Americans are going to want to go back to that en masse as time goes on. And you can feel it in the audience here. Everybody knows that something has happened to change the country that they were born into. So it's going to change. It will change. Nino. So Juanito, you said that you don't think that Zohran Mamdani will be sticking around much longer, right? I mean, you're pretty confident about that. Like you feel even if he does become mayor that there's going to be something, some way to get him out of there basically. Juan, well, let me just say this. If he gets in, he's put himself in the spotlight. If there's anything that is wonky, it's going to come out. It should have come out before he reached this point, probably, but at the very least, Trump has shown or made statements that tell you that he is not going to treat this lightly, and it's going to be an uphill path, not just for Mamdani, but for New York, if it's going to be allowed to hold. Nino, so what does it look like for New York not to get funds? Like, what does that look like? How will New York just start falling apart? I would imagine with Mamdani being in there, obviously it's going to fall apart quite quickly, but now not getting federal funds, what does that look like? Juan, well, Trump is going to, slow that down. Let me just say this, even with anybody else, Sliwa, Cuomo, anybody, New York is in deep SHIT. New York and LA both have exactly the same problem. I remember when New York went bankrupt previously, and listener, that was in 1975. I had to look it up. That's when New York went bankrupt, New York City, and had to get a federal bailout. Trump will not provide a federal bailout. What's Trump actually saying this in the context of what about the federal funds? What? And then Juan goes on, because for all you New Yorkers, you've been sold a pile of SHIT. The property owners, the business property owners, private property owners, you've all got one hell of a serious situation coming. And that's because the frauds within the bond market, the frauds that are public bonds, the water district, school district, special investment zones, and things like that. What's been happening is that you have been sold bonds that ultimately the money wasn't used the way it was supposed to. So there's violations of the original bond sales data. Securities and Exchange Commission hasn't been given accurate information. IRS hasn't been given accurate information. And so one of the most critical aspects of it, that it's going to be brutal. And for the law firms, everybody else, here's what the problem, you issue bonds that can then be tax-free. But if there's fraud in the way, the bond was issued, and then the money's spent, that tax-free status can be reversed and back to the date of the bond issue. So you have stuff that's bond issues that are, 20 years old. You think, oh, it's fine, the statute of limitations is run. No. You can, with the bond, go back to the date of issuance, and taxes are due. So the impact into the bond market, and by the way, you live in El Paso. The last one cuts out. You can't hear him, and he's saying, in El Paso, the repercussions, 30 people getting arrested related to fraud in the bond market. And then Nino says, you're breaking up a little bit. And then Juan says, but it's El Paso. And Nino says, yeah, I know. Trust me. I know that. Juan, El Paso is the place that it started. Well, now, just think. That was a little fringe area, affected the world bond market. What's going to happen when you have New York in trouble on the bond stuff again? And all the law firms issue bonds. By the way, just so you understand, where did Hillary Clinton work when Bill was governor of Arkansas? She worked for Rose Law Firm. What were they doing? Issuing bond. They were doing the legal work to put public bonds out for Arkansas Development Finance Authority and other stuff. like 90+% of their business was writing the bond stuff for public bonds, school districts, water districts, road projects, etc., stadiums, whatever you want to call it. And they were just a podunk backwater. But they all made great money doing it. What's going to happen as the bond market comes unraveled in New York, let alone, let's say, Los Angeles and a bunch of other major cities, if New York gets in trouble and wants a federal bailout, Trump is saying, I'm not sending any money to New York. You've got exactly the wrong guy. And by the way, how come New Yorkers want to vote in this guy? They want to vote him in because the guy is supposedly going to spend all this public money on cheaper housing and all sorts of public benefits. Nino, benefiting illegal immigrants, right? Juan, right. They're going to create public bonds, sell them in the markets, and then have the money to spend all sorts of wonky ways. Nino, wow. Juan, and push the tax money off to property owners. And so, by the way, I've been consulting with people in several locations now, looking at civil RICOs aimed at the bond issuers and the SEC, Security Exchange Commission, and IRS involvement to go after this in a number of states on behalf of property owners. It's coming. It's coming like a freight train. Jamie Dimon, Jamie Dimon, he's the billionaire CEO of JP Morgan Chase. So here's one saying, Jamie Dimon, the other day, he said, and he knows exactly what I know. Jamie Dimon said, whether it's 6 months or 6 years, a collapse in the bond market is imminent now. Okay? I'm paraphrasing a little bit what he said, but imminent. There's no way to stop what's coming. And in a Trump environment, Trump administration, it will come to a head faster than slower. Nino, well, Juan, let me ask you this. It says here, Mamdani says, okay, it's not the law. So President backs Cuomo in election eve to social posts as Mamdani hits back at Trump. Threat. Oh, as Mamdani hits back at Trump threat and says, it's not the law. But from here, I think Trump can do pretty much whatever he wants. And then Nino's laughing. And one says, well, again, when New York hits the wall, remember when Gorbachev had to call George Bush Sr. and tell him that Russia's economic situation was collapsing and we need help? Well, of course it affects the whole world. Russia, you don't want to collapse, etc., etc., except that, they're spending. And what we had done with the ruble, they're fighting wars on a couple of fronts. They trying to project their communist ideals out across the world, and they hit the wall. Needed some help, needed some money. Well, they had to call somebody they didn't want to call. Look for that assistance. New York may not like it, but they're going to have to call President Donald J. Trump and ask him for assistance. Let this guy go ahead and become mayor. And then when they need to send out the bat signal to save New York because of the bond crisis that's coming, and then Juan yells, it's coming! And he's yelling, if your head is in a hole and you're not listening, I'm telling you, New York is about to go into a crisis of global proportions. But it's all concentrated in one little city. And they're going to need some assistance. And Donald Trump is not going to give it. He is not going to spend it. In a world of Doge, New York is going to have to cut, not expand, government services. They are in such deep SHIT. And so is Los Angeles and a number of other cities around the country. And go back 25 years. Look at what happened in El Paso. Little Eni, El Paso, where you live. 30 people arrested just on the fraudulent bond issues and handling. What do you think that number might be in New York or Los Angeles or a number of other major cities where, just like what was going on in Little Rock, Arkansas, is going to end up being revealed across the country? It's unbelievable. Nino. So Juan, yeah. What about Gavin Newsom now voting on redistricting? And look at his position right here. Election Rigging Response Act. I mean, blaming Trump for what they do. And here it is. Why is California voting on redistricting after Texas legislature passed a controversial Republican-drawn congressional map in August? California lawmakers accuse the GOP of trying to rig next year's midterm elections and vow to fight back. And then Juan is really laughing. And Juan is going like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. And Nino's like, a partisan redistricting war across the country. Are they going to achieve this? And then Juan is going, Nino, I'm shocked. I'm shocked, I tell you. Politicians acting like politicians. Can you believe there's politicians acting like that in California? Oh my gosh, I can't believe it. I'm shocked. And then Nino said, do they achieve this? Have they achieved it? I mean, what are they going to do? And Juan, okay. You know what the issue still is? Well, it's the same thing, California statewide. They have been sucking the life out of anybody that had real money in California for a long time, pushing business owners into other states with all of their taxes, the franchise taxes, everything else, the demands, energy taxes. If you have money, you've got to pay for the other guy. That doesn't, they've just been being bled dry. And then the frauds within the bond market statewide. Oh my God, Nino, I had a chance to spend time with several of the governor candidates in California over the last couple months. And so each one of them, I've actually had people present to be able to explain what the issue is with the bonds. And they're starting to understand it and get it. Anything they promise to a taxpayer still has to be paid by somebody. The way that they've been frauding everybody is to push it to the landowners with property taxes for all these various projects. Look, you think about the train to nowhere, the high-speed rail to nowhere. Okay, that Trump said we are not going to give any federal funding to that project. They already spent $15 billion, and the train will never be built. They did it with bond money. Okay? So if you bought public utility bonds on the open market, and by the way, these bonds are purchased by widows and orphans funds. So think about the widows and orphans funds. When you're doing investment management and you're dealing with widows and orphans type money, you're supposed to put it in the absolute zero risk category as much as possible. You don't take any chances with it. You're not gambling on which stock is going to go somewhere, whatever, because they're states, they're public real stuff that gives a steady return because it's, people paying their water bill or something like that. Well, when you have property taxes, the state or the county enforces that property tax collection and payment is guaranteed. And then Nino says, Juan, you're breaking up a little bit here. And he keeps trying to get Juan back on, but you can't hear Juan. It's all like crackling and you can't hear him. So then Nino says, all right, folks, I'm going to go ahead and end this here. And then he says, Juan, you're breaking up badly. Let's finish this up on ninoscorner.tv. This has been great. So people now, Mom Donnie, crisis in New York, crisis in America, actually, crisis in California, crisis in New York is in the spotlight now. I appreciate you coming on. Juanito, let's go to ninoscorner.tv. And then all of a sudden Juan comes back and Juan says, well, let me add one last thing. Give me 20 seconds. And Nino goes, go for it. Juan says, here's the other thing. The bond issues for water districts, roads, utilities, special projects all over Palisades and Paradise. Are the property owners paying property taxes right now in those locations? And even with the insurance, is there enough insurance to cover the payments, to cover the bonds that were issued in those areas? And they're going to rebuild those areas with bonds. Is anybody going to be allowed to get in there and do it? Let me tell you, there's a crisis coming in the bond market. And the two primary places on planet Earth that will affect the markets are New York and Los Angeles, both run by people calling themselves, conservative, but they're not. watch what happens next. All right, Nino, there you go, bro. And Nino goes, all right, I'll see you at .tv right now. All right, folks, we'll see you then. And Juan says, bye. So listeners, I have I'm working on it right now. There's a part 2 of this that's behind a paywall. But I want to share it with you because it goes even deeper into this subject, and I think you should have this information. So I paid for it, but I'm giving it to you without a fee or cost. And please remember, if you like this, please remember to like, share, and subscribe, and hit the notification bell. And why not join my YouTube channel? I would really appreciate it. I've been so super shadow banned on all my social medias, and I would really appreciate if you would join, because I think it's pretty fun. But that's up to you, of course. I thank you anyway. I thank you in advance. So I close all of my podcasts with the closing prayer, which is in Sanskrit and Telugu. And what I'm saying is, God bless all beings in all worlds. Om Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Yes, peace, peace, peace. God bless you and yours. I'm sending much love and big hugs to you and yours. Keep your head up. No matter what kind of news is swirling around, the best is yet to come, and I'm telling you facts. So I'll see you when I see you, and bye-bye for now. Stay safe out there, guys.